we are.
Told you to walk away. That was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a pair of lips that I've lost in the moment. All I want is for you to come back. Now I'm caught in the middle of life, and I need you to.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. And once again, I bring the heat with my friend and colleague, former CIA analyst Larry Johnson. How is it going? The busiest man on the planet.
Yeah, man. Well, it's good to be with you. Appreciate the invite as always.
Hey, Larry, as you and I were talking earlier, I wanted to ask you, what is the deal with the Black Ops helicopters that were destroyed in Ukraine, and were there more than one destroyed?
What I understand is that there were a total of 3. The first one was on the night of the 28th, 29th. Started on the 28th and landed, after midnight on the 29th. And that had 11 people on board. The next night, or maybe 2 nights later, they sent in 2 more with, they had 20 to 24 people involved there. And at least two of the 3 helicopters in total were shot down. One was destroyed on the ground and one was shot while flying. So, not very good news for the C.I.A.
And so, with a mission like that, to risk that, do you believe that there was some important people that they were after trying to extract, or because a small amount of troops like that, commandos or whatever, could not change the tide in the battle that's going on?
Yeah, no, that's exactly the point. That even if they managed to build up a force of, quote, 34 people, all they are is a big fat target for a Russian drone. So I think that the most likely explanation, because of the GUR's relationship, you're going back 11 years now with the Central Intelligence Agency, the GUR has become an extension of the CIA. So they'll work closely together. And it would not be out of the question that CIA, what they used to call it Special Activities Division. You never really want to select the name of a division or of an entity whose acronym is sort of negative. SAD. We're sad. We're so sad. You don't want to have. You have the name like "We suck." That's our acronym. So these Special Activities Division personnel, I believe, were located there, and we're talking senior personnel who, probably, let's say a GS 14, which would be a lieutenant colonel equivalent, a GS 15, colonel equivalent, and they were trapped. Now, it also could have been that it was British intelligence operatives, and that the U.S. was trying to help save the Brits or someone else. But the explanation that was put out that all this was to strengthen the line and push back the Russians, it's not going to happen. They didn't have enough power.
So, as you and I were talking behind the scene, I was unaware that the U.S. had ever transferred helicopters like that to Ukraine. So, could that have been a U.S. or NATO operation behind door, and they just use Ukraine as as the fall guy to say that these were Ukrainians flying the helicopters?
Well, I think the most likely, but again, it's not exclusive, is that these were CIA helicopters, and the pilots flying them are what they'd call contract employees, people who had been contracted to come in and fly the helicopters. That's the most likely. The second is maybe they had trained Ukrainian pilots. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible. So, but the odds are that it was someone paid by the CIA to fly it, as opposed to an actual CIA employee who was a pilot.
So how did Russia manage to get the drop on them on both times? Because these are low flying helicopters to try, and they fly low to try to evade radar. How did Russia manage to get the drop on them both times and do as much damage as it did?
Well, there are several possibilities. Russians put drones up in the air for surveillance and reconnaissance, and then you're constantly monitoring that feed. So they could have seen the helicopters on that approach. Can also rule out the possibility that Russia has intelligence, human intelligence, from people spying on behalf of Russia inside the Ukrainian military and the GUR. So maybe they give them a tip off. They could have intercepted a communication between people talking about the operation, what they were going to do. So, any number of ways they could have found out, and I don't think we'll ever know.
So now, where do we stand with the cruise missiles from Trump and the provocations of transferring the so-called cruise missiles to Ukraine? Because Russia said that they would strike back and they would strike hard.
Yeah. No, Russia's sincere about that. Trump has, in his last public remark, said, no, we're not sending Tomahawks. Pentagon said they had approved, given their approval, telling the president, yeah, you can send them if you want them, because we got enough for our own use. Maybe that's what they told him. But I think Trump got a message from Vladimir Putin that mirrored what was said in public. If you do this, and if you launch these missiles, we have to assume those Tomahawks are carrying a nuclear warhead. So we will respond accordingly, as if we're under a nuclear attack, which means they would launch nuclear weapons. So I think that may have gotten Trump's attention, and they recognize, okay, we're not going this way right now.
Why do you think that the military establishment and the political establishment in the U.S. keeps underestimating Russia's resolve? And I know you just returned from Russia and you've talked to the people in Russia. Why are the U.S. politicians underestimating Russia, and what have some of the politicians you've spoken to said about that?
I think there's a street term for this. The acronym is PAB. You know what that stands for?
Tell me, Larry, tell me.
Punk ass bitches. I mean, we spend all of our time talking the Russians down, insulting them, and saying, and you've seen like in the weigh-in for boxing matches, and it's always the bitch that's up there mouthing off John, throwing punches, and then when they get out there in the ring, man, they get beaten like a dirty rug. Okay. Oh, sorry.
Larry is off the chain, everybody. Larry, I'll tell you what. Oh my God. So, but what have the Russians stated concerning these things?
Yeah, I mean, let me give you an example why I say that. I've watched enough television with David Petraeus and Ben Hodges and Jack King. Russia sucks. Russia's bad. They can't tie their shoelaces with, they're mentally handicapped. They're dying by the on and on and on. I interviewed several generals, retired, and one active duty, actually, General Abdi Aludinov, and General Basurin, General Evgeny Brzezinski, and a guy who's a colonel. They, when they talked about the U.S. military, they were not disrespectful. They were like, the Americans, they're a tough force. They're somebody we have to take seriously. Now, that didn't mean that we're afraid of them and that we weren't going to kill them, but it was just the difference in tone and attitude. Because it's much better to be quiet, nod, and then you get in the ring, then you knock them on their ass. As opposed to, all the jawing that goes on outside. But when it comes time to deliver, you can't deliver. Mm-hmm. Wore yourself out by flapping your gums. Mm-hmm. So that's, I saw that as just a very significant difference between the U.S. and Russia. And as you noted, the United States, by treating Russia like that and talking them down, ends up underestimating their capability. And Russia's quite happy with it. Okay, hey, underestimate us. Yeah. They just think that we're weak. That's great, because that means we can do more to you, which is, what's going on right now. They are in the process of breaking the Ukrainian army. And, it very well could get to a place where the army Ukraine may not have an army by January. Who knows?
Well, that brings us to someone that is living in La La Land, which is the so-called president of Ukraine, who continues to say that Russia is lying, that they have Russian troops encircled, and that Russia is on its last leg, and that everything is under control. What is this guy smoking, and why are they letting him talk like this? Because the more defeats they suffer, the worse it will look, not only for Ukraine, but for NATO and the United States.
Jerry Garcia said it all with the Grateful Dead. Riding that train high on cocaine. Yeah. Casey Jones and Zelensky in the front cabin, man. Tooting it up.
Man.
So, yeah, I think he's getting that. Plus, he's being lied to. But he's not the decision maker here. That was the other thing I learned while I was in Moscow. I spoke with the former Ukrainian Prime Minister, Azarov. Mm-hmm. And, he explained how actually the decisions are getting made and who's making the decisions. It's a bunch of oligarchs, about the wealthy people that are just standing behind the scenes. They're calling the shots, because this is all about making money. And the longer they can keep this gravy train going, the better for them. And that's why, I'm sure they go out and buy Zelensky's cocaine. Just keep him happy, keep him drugged up. Let him feel he's important. Let him, give him the script every day. He's like the highest paid actor in the world now.
But that means throwing away millions of lives, and possibly the total breakup of your country after material greed. Do they sit down? Do the oligarchs sit down and think about that? That what country will they have to go to when their country that they're in and they're controlling, pulling the strings, falls apart?
So let me ask you a question. When you're out walking on the sidewalk and you step on an ant and crush it, do you have to sit down and have a talk with yourself?
Nah.
You keep moving. That's why. I mean, these aren't people to them. They're not human beings. They're just numbers on a page. And that's part of the problem. One of the things the former prime minister said to me was, he said, "Look, when I took office in 2010, excuse me, he said we had 57 million Ukrainians. He said today the number is 20 million. They've lost 60% of the population. Most of them have escaped, fled overseas." And I told him, I said, "Yeah, Mr. Prime Minister, I think I know where some of them are. My dentist is from Ukraine, and I had a refrigerator repairman in here 3 months ago. He's from Ukraine. So yeah, they're living. I think they're down here living with me. You know,
I'm sorry, everybody. Larry is off the chain. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Larry, I mean, where are we on the battlefield right now? The battlefield situation. Because you're hearing Ukrainian reports. Some Ukrainians are saying it's dire, but the coke sniffer continues to say that everything is under control. And then you hear other people are saying that things are worse than what they're talking about.
Yeah. The call went out. "Hey there, Vladimir Custer. How's it looking out there? Do you see any Indians?" No. There's nothing here. We're doing great. Okay. This is Zelensky's little bighorn moment. They are in the past. So in 2022, in the entire year, Russia mounted one major offensive, captured the city of Mariupol, captured a good number of Azov battalion guys. Next year, the entire year, they had one major offensive, capture of Bakhmut. They captured Bakhmut. Last year, it was Avdiivka. Again, they've won one shot. This year, they've got 6 different cities, major cities encircled. And Kupiansk and Minograd and Pokrovsk. The Russian army is running operations from north to south all along the line of contact. And let's understand the distance we're talking about. We're talking about a distance that goes from, let's say, New York City all the way to Miami.
Wow.
Okay, it's that long. So even if you got 700,000 troops, I think if you stretch those 700,000 troops out, they wouldn't even reach a quarter of the way to Miami. If they put them, arm to arm or fingertip to fingertip. So Russia's got to focus its resources, and which then puts the burden on Ukraine trying to reinforce wherever Russia is going to attack. And right now, in the past, Russia only showed the willingness to conduct operations at one location primarily. Now they're doing it in at least 5 or 6 locations. So that's why they're now putting real pressure on the Ukrainian army, which is why I say it'll probably break within the next 2 months.
2 questions. One about French inserting troops into Odessa. What do you think about that? And the second question is, when you talk to the former Ukrainian prime minister, did he have any belief that there would be a Ukraine after this, or will Russia be the caretaker, or if there is one, or will the West be the caretaker?
Yeah, I don't recall us talking about that specifically, but I think whatever Ukraine exists, if it still exists after when this war comes to an end, it'll be small, it'll be landlocked, and it'll be even more poorer than it is right now. So, they're facing a real dire situation, and there's nobody so far. The oligarchs who are pulling the puppet strings behind the scenes, they don't want to let him off the hook. So Zelensky's got to stay in the fight.
And what about the French, the insertion of French troops
Yeah.
in
Oh,
Odessa?
that's happened. That's happened, and they're getting killed. Last I checked, they won't make any difference. Again, the French, the thing the French soldiers are good for is that their meals ready to eat. You know, the rations they bring, they're really good. They're really good. You can do some serious trading with that. You know, the French still know how to cook.
Mhm.
You know, not good at anything else, but they know how to cook.
Well, I was going to ask you about why does alternative media continue to put the blame on Zelensky if he is not calling the shots? And I've been saying that for the longest, that he is not calling the shots, but alternative media, along with mainstream media, continues to act as
Yeah.
if he is the decision maker.
It's Hollywood. I mean, look, if you've ever pitched a movie or TV project out in Hollywood, it's always who's the villain, who's the bad guy, and who's the hero. Tell them, make it simple. Oh, I got this hero, and he does this and that, and this bad guy tries to thwart him, and at the end, the bad guy gets it. Great, we love it. Let's make that. So there's no effort to understand actually the complexity and the layers, and to really say, you know, is Zelensky the kind of guy that could be calling these shots? No, he's not. You know, if it was, you know, playing the piano with your penis, yeah, he'd be. You know, he could be. He's your man, or whatever he is. Oh, sorry about that.
Oh my God. Excuse me, everybody. Larry is hilarious, everybody. So do you think that Russia is going to take all of those former Russian territories, including Kiev and Odessa?
Yes, I do.
And will it be a land bridge to Transnistria?
Yeah, yeah. No, Russia. Look, Russia is willing right now to stop the operation. You know, stop bombing them, stop killing them, provided that they pull all of the Ukrainian troops out of Zaporizhia, Kherson, Donetsk, Luhansk, and and then accept Crimea, accept all of those territories as permanently part of Russia. That means no Ukrainian troops left on it. They would insist as well on some reparations for the damage done to the civilian homes and such. Um, but uh, and then swear off NATO. Okay, yeah, we double triple promise that we're not ever going to ask NATO be a part of NATO. The Russians say okay, so they'd stop right there at Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, Zaporizhia. Wouldn't take another step forward. In fact, they'd pull the troops out of Dnipropetrovsk and Sumy and Poltava and Kharkiv. They'd pull them back. This is where Ukraine has an opportunity to save itself, but they're not going to do it. You know, they're like I love the joke about this person in New Orleans during the terrible hurricane and the flood,
Mm-hmm.
and they claim to be a person of great religious faith. They're praying, God, come rescue me. And first thing you know, up drives a Coast Guard boat and says, hey, where's the Coast Guard? Hop in. And goes, no, I have my faith in God. I'm waiting for God to provide. So they leave. Helicopter comes by, drops down a line, again rejects it. Hey, I'm having none of that. And then there was one final effort. A guy in a rowboat with a life jacket turned him down. Next thing you know, he drowns, wakes up, he's standing before God, and he goes, God, you betrayed me. I asked you to save me. And God said, I sent you the Coast Guard, a helicopter, and a rowboat, and you refused them all. What am I supposed to do? So that's where Zelensky is. He's been given every opportunity by the Russians to get out to save himself. I mean, back in in March of 2022, the Russians said, hey, just give us these solid guarantees with respect to the people in the Donbass and get NATO the hell out of Ukraine, and we won't take any of your territory. Okay? No, we're not going to do that. Screw you. We don't want your damn deal. And that went away. And so then next one that comes back was in June of last year, where Putin said, okay, here's the deal. And what I just outlined, those 5 territories, those are ours, accept those permanently. And then get rid of NATO. NATO's gone, and reparations and some other things. And again, the Zelensky and crowd are, no, we're not doing that. All right, good luck. Because now Putin has signaled. Gerasimov, the leading general, has maps in his office which show Odessa, Kiev, Dnipropetrovsk, Sumy, Poltava, and Kharkiv, I believe, all colored in red for Russia. No blue left for Ukraine. So that's why I say I think because Zelensky is so stubborn and refuses to accept the reality, I think they're going to reject that offer, and they're going to end up losing more territory.
2 last questions before I let you go, Larry. What about the flip-flopper, Trump? He can accept it, and he can do more than what he's doing. But on one end, he'll say one thing, and then 2 hours later, he'll say something else. I mean, why if the United States truly cares about preserving Ukraine's security, why won't they put their foot down and say, listen, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, we'll stop the money, because we fund the government, we fund your pensions, and we fund the military, and we also give the weapons to the military. If you don't do this, this will happen, and we'll leave you to the wolves.
Yeah. His theme music ought to be from Billy Joel, I Am the Entertainer. That's what he is. He's the entertainer in chief. It's not about strategy. Hell, many times it's not even about winning or looking good. It's about, being able to, or looking good for the country. Looking good for him, yeah. He's got to be at the center of attention. He's got to get the praise and be told how wonderful he is. And man, you've settled 8 wars. Or was it 9? Boy, you're terrific. And yet he's not paying attention to what's actually happening, economically, politically, militarily. So we'll see. I think the elections today will send some sort of message. We'll see if the Republicans win both the governor's races in Virginia and New Jersey, it's going to embolden Trump. If they lose, he's going to pretend it's not his fault. It's the fault of somebody else.
So has he been a disappointment to you? And is he the American version of Zelensky?
No, I'm tremendously disappointed in him. He had the chance to actually be a genuine peace president, put an end to the killing of Ukrainians and an end to the killing of the Gazans, but the Palestinians in Gaza. But he hasn't done it. They're talking about the ceasefire that's in place right now in Gaza, but that's temporary because these Zionists continue to go out and kill Palestinians in the West Bank and in Gaza. So ceasefire in name only. No real solution on the horizon.
Will we go to war with Venezuela?
I don't think so. If we tried to put troops in there, I think it would be disastrous for our troops. Let's remember that Venezuela is larger landmass than Vietnam. And we had trouble managing Vietnam with 550,000 soldiers. Now our total soldiers have got like 370,000. just absurd.
Yeah.
Not thinking it through.
Because Venezuela is roughly the size of California and New Mexico put together. So that's huge. Larry, man, I want to thank you again for coming through for me. Because I know you're busy and I know you're tired. You've been making your rounds. You came back from Russia and you still made time for us at the Red Pill Diaries, man. I really, really appreciate it. And I'll send you the video.
I always got time for you, brother Rashid. Thanks, man.
All right, man. Be blessed, and I'll send you this in about 10 minutes.
All right, sounds good. Bye-bye.
All right. Be blessed. Everybody, listen. We want to give shout out to M for the $2 super chat. We also I just want to say a few things as we look at what's going on. Okay, everything is pointing towards something greater. Something new coming in, and what we're watching is the Western world fighting for its life. Okay, they're fighting for they're fighting for their lives. They're fighting to try to maintain I would say the the position that they've endured and they've longed for and they've dominated in, and all of that stuff. They're fighting for all of that. They want that. And they're willing to go to war with everybody and anything to try to prevent the rise of multipolar powers and a multipolar world. But this time, they can't. The tide is against them. The time is against them. A lot of people have to realize that time, the measurement of time, if you don't measure time, you can be out of time. All right. That's why when you look at your watch and you have an appointment, you say, oh, okay, I have this amount of time to be there. Because if I'm not there in this amount of time, then I can miss out on this opportunity. Where America and the Western world are missing out on their opportunity because they're out of time. The policies that they have are out of time. The position that they've had as the world hegemon is out of time. And when you've dominated the world landscape so long, it's hard for you to come to the realization that you are no longer the dominant power. And this is what's driving America's foreign policy. This is what's driving the British foreign policy. This is what's driving NATO mad, because we're in a new paradigm, a new world. And this world that is shaping up is not under the dictates of the West. And this is unacceptable in the mind of the exceptional nations in the exceptional West. And that is why it is leading us closer and closer to war. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on the most powerful platform for truth anywhere on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, elevation, and edification. This is the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, your brother, and your friend, Rashid. And I want to say this from the depth of my heart to the bottom of my soul. Do right by others, not because there's some material gain or there's some accolades behind it, but do right by others because it's the right, the humane, and the godly thing to do. Because even when no one else is watching you, God Almighty is watching you. As my late and beautiful and precious mother would always say, God sits high, but he looks low, meaning he sits on the throne of power, but he watches everybody. All right. And know that I love each and every one of you who loves truth. But know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that the true and living God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true. But above all things, remember this, to stay righteous. And I got to say this at the end now, because my son keeps getting on me because my mother always would call him her baby boy. So, mama, your baby boys, Rashid and Kabari, loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. Thank you. We're out of here. Peace.
Told you to walk away. That was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a pair of lips that I've lost in the moment.